All right, so I'm re-recording part one because I recorded part one and then also forgot that I didn't check to record audio. So starting over. Welcome to the part one of the Tagger tutorial series. It could be between 1 and 400 parts long, so just buckle up, I guess, depending. So here's the first part. So we're just going to go over how to actually uh, open and add images to a tagger database, as well as just adding a couple of pretty simple tags to it. So here we've got our mock folder here. Um, so just pretend that this is a real pictures folder, I guess. So what we'll do here is we've got our terminal open here. Um, we'll run tagger. This is not how you're going to run tagger, so just be advised with that. But um, well, we're here in this folder, tagger tut for tutorial, not the Egyptian pharaoh. And we're going to just create a database called tagger.db. And it doesn't matter that that database doesn't actually exist yet. Once we run tagger and it sees it doesn't exist, then it'll make it for us. So that's pretty handy. But we'll just go ahead and do that. Made the database for us. Everything's all set up. It gives us our UE signature splash screen, of course, which is perfect. We've got this little thing in here. I'm going to close this or make it a little bit smaller so we can see it easier. It'll kind of tell you what directory you're in. It doesn't usually display the whole thing, so yeah, just be advised about that. But what we want to do here is, now that we're in this directory, we can see our database, and we want to start adding some files to our tagger database. So right now we don't have any files in it. So what we want to do here is go to this widget. We want to press this view button, and we want to go to this text field, and then we can either enter in a file name, or we can add like a directory path, and it adds directories recursively. So if you give it a path, it'll add everything. So just be careful about that, I guess. But I didn't give these files very easy names to type in, so I've had a couple beers as well. We're gonna try typing that one in, and we're gonna see if that gets added. Nothing is gonna happen in the UI when a file gets added. I should probably change that, but nothing happens right now, so you won't actually know if it does. But one thing that we can do is query for it to see if it is here, which querying for this file uses the tagger query language, which I'm not going to get into very in-depth here, so there will be probably definitely another video about that. Not definitely, probably. But to query for untagged files, we just use this token u.a, and then we can just write any string after that. There has to be at least one character after it, otherwise it won't do anything. We can do that, and we can see that we've got our file here. So that is, in fact, the one that we added. We can see its file name right there, which is pretty cool. All right. So here I'll get into kind of some of the file editing parts as well, just before we do anything else. So the thing about Tagger is that it stores relative paths to the files that you add to it. So if you want to like delete a file or rename a file that's in a Tagger database, you first of all kind of have to remember that it is in a Tagger database, which could be a tall order, I suppose. And then if you want to do any of those things, you have to actually do them through Tagger, just so that you can update the database and the file system at the same time. So how we do that is, while we're in view, you just press this edit button, and then if I want to rename this file, it'll pull up this little text field for me so I can fill that out. Yeah, so we'll just do the classic hello world .jpg. Anzu looks very pleased to be greeting the world, so that's cool. And you just press enter like that, and then you can see it got renamed in the file system, and then it got renamed in Tagger, which is cool. So that's how you rename files. If you want to say remove a file, you press that button, and removing, as you can see in the little tooltip, removes the file from the database but keeps it in the file system. Then there's this delete button here. The styling is a little bit different for it. Don't pay attention to that. It deletes it from both the database and the file system, so I wouldn't really recommend doing this all that often unless you know for sure you want to get rid of images. Otherwise, just remove them, But you're an adult, you can make decisions for yourself. So I believe if you press delete, it'll bring up another button to confirm, so I'll risk that. Yeah, so if you press confirm, it'll delete it. Otherwise, um, you know. So we've got that. I'll just go ahead and remove this from the database here. And then if we want to add this whole folder, we can do this / like that. It should add all of these files here. Let's go ahead and query those. And then, as you can see also, since we added the whole folder, it doesn't really discriminate about what files it adds, so it also added our database, which we don't want. So I'm just going to get rid of that. And then, yeah, now we've got all these files in there. And as you can see, in this little file list, you can drag and drop, which is cool. So we've got some really cute UE pics in here, which is perfect. It's kind of, kind of the best part, really, of using Tagger, at least for me. But yeah, so we've got these files. They're in our database now. You can either drag and drop, or you can cycle through images with these up and down arrows, which I would recommend just doing this. Or if you don't want to use these arrows, you can use your keyboard. So you have hotkeys. Control I goes up and Control K goes down, just like that. And then now, if we want to tag one of these images here, I'll use this one because I used it in my last example too. So you tag images. So I don't know. I'll go over kind of the basics of the data that we're working with here. So this is a file. These are all files here, and all they are is just a file path. So it's basically just a string that tells us where the file is. And then the other component that we need to tag an image is a descriptor. So the descriptors are all housed in this widget down here, which right now there's really nothing in here except for this unrelated, and then there's this kind of hash meta hash thing. We can go up and we see this all, which has meta and unrelated in it. This unrelated is this unrelated, so we can go in there and these are actually both the same. But we'll just go back to meta now. Also, if you just press top, that requests meta by default. So top goes to meta and not to all. Not that that really is super important, but if we want to have descriptors to tag with, because right now we don't have any at all, we need to add them in this text field here. So we can just add some. So we've got Anzu in this picture. We can tag it as a neat because like Anzu is a neat. Maybe you would like to be a neat. Maybe you are a neat and you don't want to be a neat. It doesn't really matter because if you work, you lose in the end. So that's kind of really the most important part. And then we can add another one just for good practice, like disheveled, right? That's a good one. Just press entered, and those all get put here in unrelated. So we'll get into what this meta and unrelated and stuff means later. But for now, we just have these descriptors. So what we can do is we can tag this image with Anzu. We can just say that, oh, Anzu is in this image just by dragging that tag, dragging the descriptor to the image, and then that creates this tag here, Anzu, like that. So this is the tag, this is a descriptor, this is a file. The tag is a combination of a file and a descriptor. So the tag has information about the file that it's attached to and the descriptor that is attached to that file. So don't get too confused about the differences between these two. This just has pointers to the file and the descriptor at the same time, really, basically. But that doesn't matter. From the UI front end, it doesn't matter all that much. So we can also finish up tagging this image. So then another way to tag an image is with this tag text box, which you can bring up with this little tag button here. Another way you can also do that is with your keyboard. You can press Control T for tag, and that'll automatically focus on the text field. And then if we want to just tag this image, we can just tag it with neat, and I will just tag it with dish%, because these are all done with SQLite string matches, and they're case insensitive by default, and you can use SQLite wildcards, so the percent will match any number of any characters. So you can tag that, you press enter, and then now we have all of those tags attached to that image. So there's your brief overview on how to do some simple tagging with Tagger. So stay tuned for part 2, maybe.